Welcome to A Pint with Seaniebee, coming to you from Hackney. We're in Hackney.
We are in Hackney.
In London. I've just been traversing the city today doing podcast catch-ups. I have a great guest today, a digital female icon, according to the... I don't know whether that means she's made of pixels or what, but the icon, The Guardian called her that. She's been the head of the D&AD, which is a fabulous creative institution over here. She's been coding, which is, I guess, writing programs on computers since 1994, which to me seems even before computers were around. She's a very staunch feminist, and she set up a really cool organization called SheSays, which is a mentoring organization for women. She's a creative director and founder of a very good advertising agency called Mr. President. She's a digital designer. You've a long list. You keep going on. Her name is Laura Jordan Bambach, right?
Bambach, yeah.
There's some stuff that you'll see in the blurb to the podcast of some of this one talk in particular that I was very taken by. Maybe we start there, which was your "Don't be a dick" talk, which I think was a couple of years ago.
It really
resonated with me. You go on about alpha male culture in the advertising business, which particularly in New York, I just found extremely debilitating, and also a culture of rats in a cage, I called it. You know, getting people not teamwork, not looking after, being a dick, basically.
Yeah,
actually encouraging people to be dicks.
Yeah.
Tell me this approach you've taken to sexism and gender imbalance.
Yeah. Well, look, I had quite an incredible experience when I was quite young. So 17, living on the outskirts of Sydney on kind of a farm, as it were, on 5 acres, coming into town with a friend of mine in the car to go to basically an art summer school. Sort of looked up in town to this billboard, and there's this amazing, like, wild computer graphics billboard with the faces of these women on it. It was actually V&S Matrix, quite a famous cyber feminist group of women artists based in Australia. And it was their cyber feminist manifesto, which is full of wonderful, wonderful filth, like the clitoris is a direct line to the matrix, etc., etc., etc. So it's their manifesto. They brought a billboard. It was there, and I just went, "That's what I want to do."
Right.
I've always been sort of very good at, I guess, the math side of things. I always wanted to go and do art type things, and I just saw this and went, these two things can come together in a way that's really interesting and provocative and powerful. And, I guess speaks to me at that time as a young woman with all of that kind of faith in being able to change the world. My parents had always been very, very supportive of me, but I was always, tomboy isn't the right word, but, I wanted to join Scouts and not Girl Guides. My dad went to the local council and fought for me to be in Scouts. It didn't work. I was the only girl in an entire male league playing football until I was about 15, and then they forced me to play in the girls' team.
Aussie ruled or soccer?
No, soccer.
Right.
Yeah. I was always doing lots of boy things. All my friends at high school were 4 guys, and the school I went to actually in my year had 100 guys and 20 women. So I was always kind of the only woman amongst men. And so I saw a lot of the wonderfulness actually that men have, and then also a lot of that kind of bravado and, them limiting themselves through this idea of machismo, what have you, and Australia is a very blokey culture.
It is,
and so I went, when I saw this poster, like, that's it, I can have a voice and I can talk about these things that I'm really passionate about. Both, I want equality for women, but I want guys to stop being dicks as well, because it's so self-destructive. And then the internet happened as I was at university, I think in my second year, when Netscape came out, and I was already doing computer art and that kind of thing, and just went, that's it, I can actually create my message and put it somewhere where potentially the rest of the world could see it, which was probably about 20 people at the time. Yeah, that's kind of how I got started on the internet.
You've been doing it a quarter of a century. Has there been... sorry for putting it like that. Okay. Has there been... have we made improvements?
You know what? Absolutely. So the other thing I was doing in 1994 was met an amazing woman called Rosie Cross. So she founded something called Geek Girl, which is a cyber feminist magazine and website. And she brought me on board and said, look, anything you can learn to do, coding and design and what have you, I'll give you a platform. And so I basically became the designer and coder of the site and of the magazine. She was just such this amazing, inspirational, wonderful person, but she just really, really pushed me just to pick up new things and pick up new technologies. you just couldn't find women. You couldn't find women interested in technology and creativity. If you found a woman, it was a man pretending to be a woman.
Yeah.
And the conversation was, it probably for 10 years after that, maybe even 15 years after, has always been, oh, but we're equal, like there is no problem. Feminism was a really dirty word. It was really difficult to get feminist conversations off the ground because it was like, oh, don't be stupid. You know, we've got the same rights as, you know, the same access to stuff as any man. When it was blatantly obvious that's not true. What's happened now, and I think one of the good things that social media has done is allow women to actually speak to each other and go, oh, this happened to me. Oh, actually that happened to me as well. Oh, I'm not being paid as much. Oh, actually it's a massive problem. And all of these things are bubbled to the surface. So I think there are now young women who have grown up and are almost adults where that's been the conversation and that's this new wave of feminism, which is amazing.
Yeah.
But for people kind of my generation, it was deeply uncool.
Yeah. So where we are today, like a good example, we're recording this a few months after Gillette had their little man.
Yep.
What the best, and I used to work on Gillette for many years as a head of planning, and I wrote a piece about it. I mean, my view on that was no real man should have a problem with that ad. But a lot of men did. The Piers Morgans of this world.
Yeah.
And there is this underlying kind of group. I don't want to call them. I call them incels and Jordan Petersen followers in my article, which didn't go down too well, which is meant as a kind of an ironic joke. But there is this. There is this Jordan Petersen sort of trying to coach men. But Petersen has a very old school approach to male versus female, and he I mean, I don't like him, but he has this 12 steps for life, and he believes in the man being the man and the woman being the woman, and I think he calls the women chaos and the man strength and all this kind of stuff. And there's a huge audience for that. You know, where is that going to ever go away? Or
you know what, I think there are always going to be enormous amounts of people. For people to achieve equality, some people need to gain and some people need to step aside. Yeah. And it doesn't mean that you're losing out, but I guess it can kind of feel that way from a position of privilege, a position where you feel like you're in that position because of what you've done and not because it's privilege. It's very difficult to step back and go, actually, the things that I've got, maybe I haven't earned them. Maybe even if I've worked really hard and I'm really smart and I've done all these amazing things, maybe the exact thing that I've got I haven't earned, and maybe someone else has done exactly the same things as me and isn't there because they're a woman, person of colour, disabled, etc., etc. So I think there is always going to be an enormous amount of discomfort from the people that hold the power, because that's the way it works. At least now there are conversations around it, and actually you're starting to see men calling men out a little bit more. So it actually made me cry this morning. I was reading the Sydney Morning Herald because I follow the Australian Women's Aussie Rules.
Right.
And there's an amazing Carlton player. She's fantastic, and one of the news channels posted a picture of her kicking a ball in this like classic Aussie Rules pose with like a leg up in the air, really strong, wonderful. Got so much vitriol and vile abuse from men, pornographic, sexual, just saying that she was a shit player, finding clips of when she'd missed the ball and reposting them underneath going like women are crap at football, etc., etc. The news outlet took the picture down, then they got a whole lot of kind of crap for going, well, all you're doing is silencing the woman and not showing her achievements rather than tackling the abuse. But actually what's happened over the course of the last day or two is there's been a huge wave, including in Parliament, of men standing up and going, actually, we've got to call this shit out.
We do, yeah.
Like we can't just be quiet, and we can't just take down the picture of the woman and hope it goes away. We've got to call out this bad behaviour.
How much of it do you think is bot driven? I know some of the people in Gillette who sort of, when they dug a little bit deeper into all the vitriol, that it was kind of organised. They're saying it wasn't as dramatic a kind of backlash as
you know what, I believe that, I absolutely believe that. I think
it wasn't that good an ad anyway. But
no, it wasn't fantastic. It wasn't the most amazing ad, but it was a statement that they have the right to make as one of the biggest brands for
a billion men every day use Gillette.
Yeah, and women, actually.
And women,
and women probably buy most of those products for the men. No.
Also true, about 40% of sales are from women in supermarkets, yeah.
Yeah, so, I thought for that, it was bold and brilliant, and whether or not it even increases sales, it's interesting to see how brands are now jumping properly, wholeheartedly into going, we need to be doing more than just selling. We've got a responsibility to fix some of the shit that we might have caused. Or
tell me how you got to forming SheSays and when you did that and what drove you to do that, because you got into the digital environment with the Geek Girl and all this stuff. Were you starting to experience, even back then when you were just starting off your career, the sexism and feeling you wanted to do something about it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I've always been very passionate about gender equality, actually. It's the one thing that has really sort of driven me across everything that I've done always. And when I came here, there are a couple of things. I guess when I was in Australia and I was doing Geek Girl, and you would see it and you would feel it, and it was very uncool to say anything about it, but it was so tangible because it's such a blokey culture, as I said. When I came here, everything, it's weird, like in Britain, everything is a little bit more hidden or passive-aggressive or...
politer or something.
Yeah, kind of politer, but still kind of mean. So
slightly menacing.
Exactly. So it took me a little while to get around it. And again, most of my friends, when I moved here, were guys. But yeah, I would see it all the time, but it would just kind of fuel me to go, basically, well, fuck you. I'm just going to be better at you than this. And so it was that kind of fighting spirit, I guess, that drove me. I realised when I was sort of heading up a department at an agency, I had a friend, Ali, she was a creative director at another agency, digital agency. And we knew each other because we were always the only two women on any digital panel. Yeah. So it was like, hello, woman, hello, other digital woman. Yeah. And then we found out we lived next or near each other. And so we went for a drink one night and said, we've got to change it because she was very similar to me. She's Brazilian. She grew up in a very macho culture before she came here. And she kind of learned how to fight, take it on the chin. But we realised for like so many women here in the UK, it was really, really hard, and that we needed to do something to help girls. I'll say girls because, girls at high school, young women at university, then into the industry. We had a look at, the art and design courses and what have you, and 51% of the people taking the courses are women, and we had 0 people even putting their CVs forward to our agencies. And they were reputed, they were very going? Cool agencies. Well, this is the question. So the question was, where the fuck are they going if they're not entering creative departments? A lot of them went into production, a lot of them went into teaching, a lot of them just went and did something else. But we were thinking, well, what is so wrong with our industry that the women just disappear and they don't even give it a go? So we had one meeting, and actually from that, what we got from that is that the network of the women that we had in the room, there was about 20 of us, there was something really magical in getting those people together face to face and talking about the issues and putting plans together. And so we were, okay, we'll do another one and we'll do another one. And then SheSays was sort of born organically from that. And then suddenly we're doing an event every month, and suddenly we're getting 100, 200 people at events, and we're finding out what these causes are and what's holding women back. It's
so it's a mentoring thing as well. So someone signs up,
absolutely.
And
so
then
we
you appoint someone to work with them.
Yeah, so we do a couple of things, and we do different things in different cities. So we're now in about 41 cities around the world. Oh, okay. Got 40,000 members, and actually our newest one, which will be City 41, hopefully, is going to be Afghanistan.
Wow.
But that's sort of just on the table, so it'll be a while before that.
And there's
gets
issues
going.
In Afghanistan right now with the American pullout and the deal with the Taliban, and that's not going to play well for women at all, I don't think, out there.
No. It's going to be tough. So, so we do monthly events. Some cities don't do monthly. Amsterdam does 4 a year, but they're massive. The volunteers that run each city kind of shape it to what's needed. Yeah, we do mentoring. So in London, I think we paired 300 mentors and 300 mentees over the course of last year. And then we do, bigger seminars, bigger events. There is an issue in our industry with those very, very senior creative jobs. There are very few chief creative officers that are women because they're a little bit, they're kind of show pony-ish jobs, and you need to have a bit of a name for yourself. It's really difficult for women to get a name for themselves
Yeah, I interviewed Rosie Arnold about this exact point, and she also made the observation that, you know, women get put on women type products. Most male juries. I want to talk to you a little bit later about Cannt Festival, because I love that. I had a similar idea way back to do something about shit advertising awards. But, you know, and that the juries are all male. And I remember one nice example of this was we were doing a campaign for we're trying to win awards for P&G in Cannes. Let's not beat about the bush. In Saatchi, and we went away and we did briefs on everything. But one of the ads we had was for Pampers, and it was like a nappy that was done like a hammock, right? So it was a nice idea and all about comfort. And Andy Greenaway came to work with us, and he looked at it. It was against a psych black background, you know. So it looked like an ad for PlayStation. Yeah. And he said the problem with that is it needs to have bunny rabbits and all the kind of stuff that, you know, around it that make it look perfect for a child. And we're like, yeah, because we were making the ad tonally look like what was winning, PlayStation, all that kind of stuff. And the other observation I had, which you know, was in Sydney. I took charge of an agency which will remain nameless. George Patterson Bates in 2007, and I was CEO there joint CEO there for a couple of months. And amongst other reasons, it was the only real time that I saw massive sexism to the point of like way before Me Too-ish stuff. There were women working there who were senior account people who told me that they had you know, emails from senior management asking them up to their office. I mean, it was maddening, right? Yeah. Jumping out at females in the car park, drunk, stuff like that, right? And I was saying to Andrew Sargent, who I worked with, I said, this place is just, like a head of Melbourne comes into me, says, "Oh, how's your new job going? Don't forget, just hire the woman with the big tits and you'll be fine." Like that kind of stuff. Only 10 years ago.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
But I had not experienced it. I mean, you know, there's probably a certain amount of it that is boys' club that they keep to themselves. But like we were sitting in here as the new CEOs going, this is. And it was a tinderbox, you know. I also was in JWT when the Erin scandal broke with the Argentinian guy, which was big. I just left, but I knew her. And there's you know, even in that instance, this idea that you don't listen, or you know, she must have been trying. Yeah,
exactly. You don't punish the guy. You look for what the woman has done wrong.
She must have been obviously. So they were my Saatchi. I found very good. You know, Asia, a lot of female CEOs, and they were probably the best CEOs I've worked with, because they're not. There's something more empathetic in advertising, I think, where it's not a dick measuring competition, which I found it was in New York, as I said earlier. Yeah.
Well, it's the kind of interesting thing is. Coming up through the digital ranks in sort of design, there are fewer women, but I would say those businesses, by and large, are much more respectful.
Yeah, how's Facebook and Google and all those? Are they all better than the ad business, or worse? Or
they're a lot better than the ad business. So what really shook me, you know, SheSays was started to solve a problem and to actually, you know, to find what actions will actually help more women to get into these roles.
So give us some examples of what you believe are those actions that you talk about.
Yeah, so one of the key things that we do is keep SheSays meetings, the monthly ones, women only. Now, this is really weird, but when we've invited guys, because I would love to have guys there and it would be, you know, really interesting. We talk about trends, we never talk about women's issues, that's key. We always talk about things that are going to make you boss up when you get back into the office. But you get a lot of women who are suddenly intimidated and they don't ask questions. So it's basically safe space to ask questions. And then that's a weird thing to say, but literally we've tried it and it hasn't worked. So we've had to sort of pull back and not allow men in those monthly meetings. If we're talking about...
You mean when men were there...
Women stopped asking questions.
Really?
And I know that's something that obviously women need to work on, but it's something that culture needs to work on, allowing women to speak and have a voice and have an opinion and not to be afraid if they don't know something. Yeah. We do as much as we can to arm them with, you know, how to run a better agency, how to write a better brief, how to get to a more creative place, how to be comfortable with sort of ideas that scare you, how to negotiate, how to sell your work, and, you know, even practical things like, how to run a meeting and that kind of stuff properly, so that you're heard and not spoken over. But a range of ways where women can help and support each other and grow each other, and that's where the mentoring comes in. So whether it's having a buddy at work and you can speak for each other and help each other to grow, or having a mentor that can help you with these problems so it doesn't feel like your first fuck up is going to, be your last. We get a lot of successful women to come and talk about how they fucked up, actually. And
it's critical.
Yeah,
I actually find it hard to get women on this podcast.
Yeah.
I have to, and it's not for anything other than they go, oh, no one wants to hear my story, I don't really feel comfortable doing it. And men are like, yes, let me talk to you about whatever. I don't want it to be a quota driven, because the way I do it is you're going to recommend hopefully 3 people from, and that's how I find my guests. And as it happens this week, I think I had 4 women and 3 men. But it's hard. And they don't want to, the women don't necessarily want to be on it.
Well, actually, one of the things that we found that spurred SheSays into being formed actually 12 years ago was I was looking for a junior flash designer for my team. And I had a man and a woman, identical CVs, 6 months experience, straight out of college, both really good colleges. The man came in and went, I can do it, I've been doing it for 6 months. And the woman came in and went, I'm not sure I'm ready for this, I've only been doing it for six months. Oh, I did.
The truth.
Yeah, I did. However...
Don't be a dick.
Yeah. However, if you're not attuned to the fact that because of culture, not because of a lack of being adequate from women, but you're told from such a young age to limit your potential and that you're there in the service of others and you need to know something 100% before you can put your hand up, those effects are huge. And so when they say women have got a confidence problem, they do, but it's not one that they've caused. It's one that has been kind of put upon them, and that's part of what we try in SheSays to help to shift, to get women to go, oh, yeah, actually, I mean,
is there also, though, a sort of a spotty geek male 24 hours behind a computer in this business, right? In the coding and gaming and all that stuff. It's women have better things to be doing sometimes. Right?
Yeah, sometimes. But women can do that too.
Of course, yeah.
Exactly.
But is there numbers? Is there kind of is that part of the numbers thing?
No, they're just. But it starts if we're talking about coding, and there's been a lot of talk around kind of STEM, getting more, girls to get into STEM subjects. Again, it's this limiting behaviour where so many little subtle things tell women that they can't achieve, or that they're not going to be very good being an engineer or being a scientist or studying maths or doing any of those kinds of things. And I'm just very lucky that I was super stubborn, and just every time I came across that, just went, oh, fuck you, I'm just going to do it really, really well.
Well, so there is also women who I've spoken to who, about this issue specifically also in the advertising business, who felt maybe they had to become, they had to play at the big boy side, especially in Australia, where it's the John Singletons and the colourful racing identities and these guys who are out punching each other in the face after a few drinks. And yet tempered with the idea that I believe women have much more empathy than men and they're kinder and all this kind of stuff. That's where I despaired, I think, when I went over to America with the sort of the orthodontically perfect bosses with the braces who were absolute dicks, behind the scenes. And I felt it an awful lot more in Australia than I did say in Asia.
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah. I mean, is it? When does it become time to close down? SheSays.
When there's equal representation within agencies, within creative
departments. Where are we at now? 60-40? Or?
In creative departments, we're at about, I want to say, it's under 20. It's like maybe about 18% women in creative departments. But you move to, I think that's it. It's
again for probably some wrong reasons.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Producers, more women, because they're the ones that make shit happen. Planners seem to, I don't know. That's a good question about planners, actually.
Well, my experience would be... Certainly I worked on P&G for many years, so there was a lot of women because so much of their products, or they tend to want to put women on. And again, on Gillette, we had 3 female planners, not on the Gillette male side.
Yeah.
But I did an awful lot of the groups because it was I found that men wouldn't open up to a woman researcher in group situations as much as they would with a guy, and you can get some of that bloke in that. That sounds maybe sexist and not fair.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I mean, I don't think by the same standard I could go in and moderate a sanitary towel group. I mean, I would feel a woman would be far better to do that than me, right? And I also think that I would be intimidating. Women wouldn't open up as much as they would to.
Yeah.
So I'd say planning is probably, in my view, slightly more female. I think female make better planners than men. I think, in my experience, but. So tell me about the Cannt Festival. What was that all about?
So again, that's something that I co-founded with Simon Gill, who was joint ECD with him at LBI many years ago, and. I don't know, I have a love-hate relationship with it. It's good to go. Some interesting things have happened. However, that week itself, it's full of debauchery and flagrant sexism.
Yeah.
Like way too much booze, and it's a bit icky.
Yes, I went 9 or 10 years in a row, and I'm over it now.
Yeah.
I think it jumped the shark 2 years ago. It's so flabby, and the amount of awards, it's like...
Yeah.
There's thousands of awards given out. There should only be 12 awards or 10 awards like the Oscars, and then leave the best use of. I was waiting for a best video entry award.
Yeah. So Simon and I were talking about it. We went the year that the crash happened, 2008, which is I think when, so we must have started this in 2008. And we stayed on a campsite about half an hour's drive out of Cannes because the agency didn't have any money, but we felt so terrible about spending money there when we had such an amazing team of people back in the office who'd actually made the work. And if any creative director thinks that they're solely responsible for making a piece of work ever again,
right.
It's
Don't
just
be a
not
dick.
true.
Yeah.
And so we thought when we came back, like, what can we do to bring some of that Cannes spirit back to London, but also to celebrate all the people that actually make shit happen, and also the people who would make shit happen if they were given a chance, but for whatever reason, again, haven't been given the opportunities. So we started at Cannt Festival, and it runs the same week as Cannes, and it's been running now since then.
Where does it happen?
We've kind of moved it around a little bit. The Hospital Club supported it for a couple of years.
Is it one night or over a week?
No, it's over the whole week.
Okay.
And then last year we did something a bit different in that we got a number of interesting sort of creative groups from around Europe to get involved. And so they would sort of run an event or sponsor an event or bring together some interesting people from the industry and do things. And it took off a little bit in Eastern Europe. Again, I think because you can't afford to go to Cannes
That's
if you're,
ridiculous.
from
What do you give
Romania.
out awards for? Do you have to enter?
No, we don't. So we used to do a student award, but we don't do awards at all anymore. It's just about the
Speeches and
talks
and
and
stuff like
networking.
Many people go to it.
Oh, I don't know, thousands.
Really?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, it's really good.
You have this, when I was doing my research on you, you have this great ability to be matter of fact about setting things up, which are very hard to do, right?
Yeah, they are. They are. They're very hard to do, but they're not as hard to do with other people as they are on your own.
As suffering what you're trying to zag away from. So you set up your own ad agency. So I want to talk to you about this. We were talking on the way here.
Yeah.
What caused you to set up your own place?
Yes.
And when did you do that? Laura is in charge of Mr. President. She's the creative director and founder.
Indeed. Chief Creative Officer.
Creative Officer, sorry.
Yeah, because, I can give myself the title that I want.
What's the difference between Chief Creative Officer and Creative Director?
Well, in an agency the size of us, not a huge amount, but, ridiculously, it does kind of help things like meeting big clients in the States and that kind of stuff. So that's really what it's for.
I'd like to be Vice President if you want to hire me as your planning head.
Sure. No, so my two business partners, Claire and Nick, had kind of stepped away from their agency Dare and were working with a client under the parent company. And I was helping them find a third partner because they were sort of making a shift into actually becoming a proper creative agency, and just realised that it should be me. And the reason that I realised that that it was the right thing to do is they both fundamentally believe in what I believe in, which is creating work that leaves a legacy, that has value, creating purposeful work for brands, working with brands whose products are actually really good, to be able to celebrate them, looking progressively at how we might, because, you know, advertising, our superpower is taking really complex things and making them really simple so that everyone understands them. Yeah. That's an amazing power to have if you're trying to also shift the dial on how
something good
people how people of colour are portrayed in advertising, or whatever it is. Climate change, which is the big one, because we don't have 30 summers left. We've got 12 now, don't we? 11 now. That's fucking terrifying, and particularly as someone who has an 11-year-old going, he's not going to make it into his mid-20s unless we all get behind actually sorting ourselves out.
The Onion had the best headline, which was apparently a global warming issue from 2006, still a thing.
Yeah, but I'm glad they're calling it sort of a climate catastrophe now, not just climate change, because it is a catastrophe. But
what do you think we have to do?
I mean,
apart from the things that they say, I mean, like even as an Irishman, the farming lobby and we've got to stop eating meat and stuff like that. I mean, I don't know how you begin to plan to do that, but I had an idea that maybe restaurants can only serve meat on 2 or 3 days a week, and that.
Have you seen Simon Amstell's film? He's got a film. It was on iPlayer. It's called Carnage, and I think it's wonderful. It's basically set in the near future. Once meat eating has become such, it's basically like smoking.
Right.
So they've got sort of Meat Eaters Anonymous, and they've got all the old people and the younger people are going, God, I can't imagine they ever did this, and sort of forgiving their parents for ever having eaten meat. It's really funny and also really brutal. But look, that is, like it or not, that is actually one thing that we can all do to help with climate change. Obviously plastic bottles, which I now refill, but up until recently I went, they're plastic bottles, but they're recyclable, it's fine, I'll put them in the recycling, it'll be fine, and thinking I'm doing something good. Just don't buy them. Exactly. Try to buy cotton clothes, because the little tiny microfibers that come off non-natural fabrics are in the bottom of the Mariana Trench. So I mean, there's a lot.
Do you think we will go?
I think we're fucked in terms of I think we're fucked in terms of plastics. I think we'll probably all start dying earlier of cancer. Yeah, but it's
bleak.
It's really bleak. I know, but
it's also bleak being a woman.
But it's like, come on, we're just getting there. We're just, we're just starting to have ourselves heard, and then suddenly it's the end of the world. And you guys fucked it up. Yeah. No, but what I try to do in my personal life is try to limit my impact, except for flying, which is something that I'm starting to feel terrible about, but still. Well, I mean, like the flying thing. I have a friend of mine, one of my actually brother-in-law, who is very careful about his carbon footprint and his flying. Puts me to shame. There's also this thing, though, really, that big corporations need to be. And that is where whatever
you do in this kitchen is dwarfed by the shit they're doing.
Yeah, but whatever 7 billion people do in their kitchens.
I agree. But
yes, I see your point.
Oil companies and all of these guys. I mean, we refuse to tax the shit out of them and make it hard for them.
I know, but see, this is where I feel like brands and advertising can make a difference, because we can not only talk to the big companies. Yeah. And get them to change and get them to see the value of doing things better. Oil companies, I don't know how you even start. Yeah. But
I was looking at Macron with the yellow vest thing, right? Which is basically a backlash against his policy of hiking up the was it diesel or petrol prices and letting the public pay for it. Yeah. And I was saying to one of my friends in Paris, why couldn't he get the levy on the producers of the petrol and not pass it all the way down to the consumer? Blah 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 blah, right? Yeah, fudgy capitalist answer. Yeah. And I don't know why he couldn't do that. Yeah. Well, there's probably Enron will pull out of France. Okay, move on.
Yeah.
So I'm going to link to your speech about don't be a dick, but I loved it because it was what I would have, you know.
It was interesting
because you have a moral compass in there. Don't make shit. It's got trust. Stick to your ethics. If you know, don't work with clients. It's going to cost you money to be principled. All that kind of stuff. Do you feel that you know you're, Mr. President? Is it hard?
It is really hard, and it's really hard at the moment. The economy in Britain is not great, and we have a major chasm. I don't know what's going to happen, but you know, it's been tough for everyone, and on top of that, the industry's changing really rapidly. Well,
traditional agencies are collapsing like a flan in a cupboard.
Yeah,
as Eddie Izzard says. And there's a company I'm sort of working a little bit with in Dublin called Company of Huskies, who were a digital agency, and they've kind of judo rolled their way into getting most of the main stuff, because as clients don't use the word digital anymore, but they have got in the door that way, and they're more nimble and they're more agile and they're probably more principled and they're less.
No, you know, that's the thing. You know, what my experience of digital agencies was a lot of freedom, a lot less hierarchy, a lot more respect, a lot more camaraderie, a lot more collaboration. As you said, it's agile. The answer doesn't have to be something that's pointless. You could actually solve a problem with the answer. You know, a lot of
and respect for staff.
Respect for staff, respect for the clients, and also empathy, because if you are making digital products, your key thing as a designer or creative is to remove all the friction and make it as joyful for the person using it to use as possible. So you really get to understand and get under the skin of other human beings and put yourself in the feet of other people in a way that I don't think traditional creatives have had to do before. So I think, you know, traditional creativity, at Mr. P, we have a blend. My ECD John is extraordinary. He's the fourth partner of the agency, and he's come through that traditional agency world, I guess, you know, Crispin Porter and where have you. He's absolutely brilliant. He knows things that I don't know. Like, couldn't be as funny as him, or write a pun or write a headline that was as sharp, because that's not what I've done. But what I can do is I can really, really understand people, and I think bringing those two things together is really magical.
I wrote about it I have this kind of satire article that I write for the Irish Trade Rag. You won't mind me saying that. I did it about the Scrabble. I play Scrabble on my phone, and after every move, Scrabble give me an ad that's 30 seconds with a little X after 5 seconds, and I always close it after. I don't watch it. And I was doing it around some Kia car, this bell end jumping off a cliff, ticking off his bucket list. Hope he didn't make it. And by the end of the week, I had seen the same ad, the same 5 seconds opening of the ad, probably 1,000 times. Yeah. To the point where first of all, I will never buy a Kia car. Yeah. As a result. Yeah. Doing the exact opposite of what they want me to do, right? And what I was basically getting at is the algorithm is becoming king. It doesn't really matter what you do in Mr. P creatively, as long as, of course it does. I'm just saying this is the argument. As long as it's delivered in vast blobs of crap like I get, right? 5-second blobs. And this goes way back to, like, when I was in Asia, I was working at Toyota, and they did a sponsorship back before smartphones of the soccer. And that's a huge footprint. India, Thailand, Indonesia, Singapore. And we had one shitty ad that Saatchi made, and it was a 4 out of 10 bad ad, right? And they, as part of the sponsorship deal, they got every ad break. They had a 60-second ad in it. And they put the same ad in. And you know the way Super Saturday works for real soccer fans. They're going, we watched the first game, we watched the second game. And I said, we need to be clever here. We need to say, why don't we get all the great award-winning Toyota ads that we've done at Saatchi, and just, it doesn't matter, the product's not available. It doesn't matter if the product's not available.
People will enjoy it more and go, Toyota, they're great.
And I was, the head of the Toyota account was thinking, that's too hard. I don't want to do that. And he didn't do it.
Yeah. See, I think Mark Reed actually, didn't he? He stood up and gave, it was Keith Weed, wasn't it? Stood up and was talking to Mark about creativity. I think in the last couple of weeks, saying WPP lost its way a bit creatively. Yeah. We need more creative, you know.
Are you for sale, by the way?
No. No. Definitely not to WPP.
What did he say? Sorry, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, but it was
That
giving
question threw you there a bit.
But it was giving him a bit of a bollocking about just the fact that creativity's gone out the window. And you're right, there is a rise of the algorithm, that placement and personalisation, which isn't really personalisation, is king, and it does deliver some results. If you put amazing stuff and then you use the technology and you build on it, you can do incredible things. But it's so rare to see an ad that is being delivered programmatically that's had any thought put into it, which is why they're so crap and why people turn them off.
My partner has a little girl called Ayla, who's 8, and she's a feminist. Excellent. And she's also not doing her communion this year. She's an atheist, and that's very hard to be in Ireland.
Yeah.
Before we go, what would you say to her?
Oh,
what advice would you give her?
Just give her a big hug and say, stick with what's in your heart. You can't go wrong if you feel like you're doing the right thing on the inside.
Thank you very much for being on.
It's such a pleasure.